Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Oak Grove Community Council June 28th meeting. Glad that everyone could make it tonight. I want to offer a special welcome to anyone who is here at our meeting for the first time. So if you're new, we'd like to know who you are. We'll get to that in just a minute. I'm going to have the board introduce themselves and then introduce our newcomers and then everyone else. So my name is Valerie Chapman and I am the chair of the Oak Grove Community Council Board. Mark?
Can't hear you, Mark. Go again, Mark. Didn't work.
No, we're not hearing you, Mark, at all. Jane, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and we'll see if Mark can get some sound.
Okay, Jane Civiletti. I'm the treasurer. I live on Fair Oaks Avenue.
I forgot to say that I live on Evergreen Street, just a block the trolley train.
Joseph.
Hi, I'm Joseph Edge and I live in the River Forest neighborhood.
Mark, do you want to try again? See if we can hear you. No, we're not getting anything. Okay, maybe he will go out and come back in, and Joseph or Jane, if you'll catch him when he comes back in, I would appreciate that. So if you're a newcomer to the Oak Grove Community Council, well, you can raise your hand, either just raise your hand or use that feature. So Sue on Oak, do you want to introduce you, unmute yourself and introduce yourself and let us know about where you live?
My name is Sue Thomas. I live at Willamette View.
Welcome. We're glad to have you tonight. And did I see another first-time person?
Hi, it's Neil Nelson. I've actually been here once. It was like 6 or 8 months ago, just one time. So I'm just kind of new, but I'm trying to get reacquainted with this so I can be here more often. And I live off of Concord.
Great, nice to have you.
Thank you.
Let's and Ricky.
Yes, my name is Ricky Schoenthal and I live at Willamette View.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Right. Let's go through and introduce other people. Ben.
Hi there, my name's Ben Chaney, new here, and we're up on Briggs.
Welcome.
But where was that, Ben?
Up on Briggs?
Oh, okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Pam?
I'm Pam Horan. I live at where do I live? Rose Villa.
Welcome. Sue Conahan.
Sue Conahan, Parkview Circle.
Welcome. Anita.
Anita Blackmar, Fair Oaks Avenue. And I think Arlo might be new. I may have that wrong though. But I see Arlo's here.
Arlo, are you a new person that would like to show us your picture or say hello?
Yeah, Arlo, I'm on Arista.
Welcome. Tom.
Tom Hogan on Oatfield, between Concord and Thiessen. Good evening, everybody.
And Linda.
I'm Linda Seals. I live on Woodland Way off of Oak Grove Boulevard.
Wayne.
Sorry about that. This is Wayne Potter. I live at Willamette View, and it's good to see some other Willamette viewers here. Welcome.
And good to see you. Tom Hammond.
Jolene and Tom Hammond. We live on Viewcrest Drive.
Paul.
Paul Savis, Kronberg Avenue, blocks from Risley Avenue.
Welcome. Eleanor.
Hi there, I'm Eleanor Hunter, Laurie Avenue, just south of Oak Grove Boulevard.
Okay. Welcome. Gwen, I think your camera is focused, so we just see the top of your head.
Yeah, I can't, for some reason, I'm not being able to see myself, so I don't know where I am. My name's Green. I live on Evergreen at 25th.
Pat.
Pat Calendar. I live at Roseville.
Welcome. Dave.
Dave Dobeck, I live at Rosevilla.
Welcome. Bob.
I'm Bob Bohannon. I live adjacent to Rosevilla on Southeast Laurie.
Welcome. Thelma.
Thelma Hagen Miller, I live on the corner of Southeast Southview and Westview, just south of Concord.
Welcome. And Heidi.
Good evening. Yes, I'm Heidi Bullock. I'm Deer Oak Lodge Water Services representative. I'm one of the board members. I'm technically in Jennings Lodge by one block. I'm just south of Concord, or excuse me, I'm just south of Nave off of Rothy and Hillside.
Well, we're glad you're here. I think that's everybody that I see tonight. So if we miss somebody or somebody new comes in, Jane is managing the attendance tonight. So thank you, Jane. So let's move to our officer reports. Jane.
The treasury stands at the same as it was at our last meeting, $1,299.95. No money in, no other checks out. Thank you.
Our secretary, Rich Napon, is still out. He's been ill, but we did send the draft minutes along with the agenda. So were there any corrections or additions or changes to the minutes? If not, we will leave them as recorded. So, thank you, as recorded. And we don't have a chair report tonight. Here comes Rich. He's going to sit in with us tonight. That's great. Great to have you, Rich. Nice to see you. Here's your picture. All right. Let's move to our featured speaker, Carrie Shanklin. I'm Officer Captain Shanklin. I'll get it right. The Deputy Fire Chief. So welcome.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I always enjoy coming to this group. It seems like a very active community. So what I'm going to do is I have some bullet points, just kind of a report from the fire district about things that are happening. And then I have a little presentation on, once again, wildfire prevention and defensible space. And then a little section on fireworks safety, since that seems to be right around the corner. So the first thing is the fire district, Clackamas Fire District #1, really wants to thank everybody for their support during our levy pass, which is just we appreciate the communities, and we're so looking forward to providing the highest level of service to our communities, and just a big thank you for that. During the month of May, the fire district had a total monthly call volume of 2,562 calls. It continues to kind of keep creeping up year after year with EMS calls or emergency medical calls, the highest level of increase in our call volume. We wanted to let you know that beginning July 1st, Clackamas Fire District #1 will be providing a full contract for service to Sandy Fire District. We have very good rapport with that fire district, and we've already been working on a partial contract for service. And so the two boards voted to make that a full contract for service starting July 1. So we're very excited to serve that community as well. We wanted to let you know that due to ongoing really dry conditions and increasing temperatures and heat, backyard burning was closed a week early this year. It usually ends around June 15th, regardless of weather conditions. It just kind of stops for the summer. But this year we had to stop it about a week early, and I support that decision. Let's see, for the month of June, the fire district safety focus will continue to be wildfire prevention and wildfire preparedness. The wildfires of 2020 definitely changed our focus. That is such a prevalent focus for us now. So we just, even if you're in a community or a neighborhood, it's still, we want people to take measures to make their house as safe as possible if the threat of wildfire or brush fires ever does encroach into your area. Let's see, excuse me. Oh, where am I? We want to encourage people to sign up for, speaking of wildfires and other emergencies, we really want people to encourage people to sign up for the Clackamas County Public Alert Notification System. It's super easy. I went to their website just to make sure that it was as easy as I thought it had been, and it's pretty easy. It's right there. It's a public alert, a notification, and that just allows you to be notified if like there's a wildfire threat, or like air quality is bad. It's very helpful to sign up for that. And then we are going to share some information about our Ready, Set, Go program. That kind of is in my later, more detailed presentation. But water safety is prevalent in the summer. We want people to remember that the waters are still, if you go near rivers, the water's still really cold. We really encourage people to wear a life jacket. Please supervise children near water. And then we encourage children also to learn how to swim. Very important. We're going to talk a little bit about fireworks safety in a little more detail. One of the other safety messages that we have is we want people to learn hands-only CPR and how to use an AED. One of the most numerous, the quantity wise, highest number of calls that we go on, a lot of them are heart related. And so sometimes a bystander doing CPR is the difference between life and death. And with the hands only approach, it doesn't, like some people are leery of doing CPR because like, oh, I don't remember what the numbers are, or, like I don't want to get somebody's germs on me if I have to do mouth to mouth. But with hands only, you just do chest compressions, hard and fast until help arrives. And that has proven to be one of the most effective means for saving people. Then finally, grilling safety. It is that season of barbecues and outdoor cooking. And we just want to remind everyone, we get about 10,000, not in just our area, but in the US, 10,000 cooking related grill fires every year, and they're very preventable. We encourage people to stay near their food. Don't make it unattended cooking, which is our number one cause for fires. Supervise the barbecue when they're there. Here's one, never grill indoors. That was one of our tips. Like, okay, we got that one. And then keep the grill away from anything that can burn, like even trees. I've gone to fires where people have pushed the barbecue up against the house, and then they forgot to turn it off, and it ignited the decking or the siding. So just make sure that you turn off the grill when you're done using it, and then you give it a little bit of clearance from anything combustible. So does anyone have any questions about the kind of the fire department message before I start on my presentation about wildfire safety? Okay, hearing none, he's going to start screen sharing. Thank you, Mark. So at the fire district, we use the platform of Teams. And so I sent my PowerPoint to Valerie and Mark to ask if they could share it because we have a different platform. So I'm on my iPhone here. So I thought this might be more effective. So I really appreciate it. Yay. That looks great. So the first slide is just the kind of an intro slide about one of our, that you probably heard that the terminology of defensible space, and we're just going to delve a little bit about what that means. So go ahead and go to the next slide. Thank you. And we're going to learn the importance of the Ready, Set, Go principles and defensible space. So go ahead and go to the next slide. So when we say defensible space, it's just kind of defining the area around your house. In an emergency, a lot of times the fire department time is absolutely crucial in an emergency. So they're going to roll up to, your home, and they're going to, do what they can. And the more defendable it is from wildfires, the more likely that they'll be able to have an active save of your property. So we ask that people, the first zone is called the 30-foot zone around your house. And that's just an area that is free from most combustibles. The vegetation is trimmed up. The grass is cut low, and it's the closest to your home, and it's the most fire resistant area. And then the next zone, a little further out, the vegetation can be, a little bit more prevalent, but we still ask that you trim up ladder fuels, which are those fuels that, like, if you think about the grass, and then the next level might be trees that are, like a little bit taller, but it allows fire to climb up as a ladder. So once fire gets into the trees, it's very, very hard to put out. So eliminating ladder fuels in those areas and increasing the fire resistance of those zones. Next slide, please. And so we also want people to reduce flammable vegetation around the home. Oh my goodness, we had such a wet spring this year. And so I live we have some acreage, and oh my goodness, the vegetation has grown, it's thriving. But so it's this constant process of trying to keep it trimmed down, mowing the grass, keeping the plants trimmed up. And then another suggestion is if you're kind of re-landscaping, we're not asking you to mow everything down and make it like a moonscape. But if you're adding new plants to your landscaping, or you're doing a little yard makeover, then maybe consider some of the plants that are a little more fire resistant. Plants such as vine maple and lilac are good choices. There's a book that was published by Oregon State University that's called Fire Resistant Landscaping, and it's a great resource. You can order it online, and it talks about all kinds of plants that are more resistant to fire. Next slide, please. Number 3, and oops, gotta do mine. Reduce the density of nearby trees. So this is kind of a good side-by-side comparison. When trees grow in clusters, then the fire can spread through that so quickly. But when they're a little bit more spread out, then it's a little more challenging for the fire to spread as quickly. Forest fires or wildland fires move by the spread of not only direct flame impingement, but the embers that drop. It kind of creates its own wind and weather, and then it shoots the embers up to a mile away, those little flaming brands of fire. And so the more trimmed up that things are, the more resistant your property becomes. So next slide. And then keeping the grass and weeds cut low, trimming the grass to lower than 4 inches, which with this nice weather and the hardy grass lawns that people have now, it's kind of a regular basis that you're going to need to cut your grass to prevent the rapid spread of fire and high flames. Sometimes this is just a little bit of a caveat, but sometimes people will call the fire department and say, oh my gosh, my neighbor's yard is so overgrown. I feel like it's a fire hazard. And we're not really able to enforce that, but you have a pretty active code enforcement in your area. And so if you have a concern, the appropriate place to call for, overgrown properties would be start with code enforcement. Next slide, please. And then we want people to keep their wood piles away from your home and outbuildings. Again, with that concept of wildfire spreading with embers, if an ember were to, float into a wood pile that's right next to your house, that has a greater chance of igniting. And so we like to keep the wood piles or burnable materials at least 20 feet from your home, and then providing at least 10 feet of clearance for your wood piles. I know a lot of people like to keep it under the eaves of their house so to keep it dry, but it does increase the fire hazard of the home if the wood pile's right there. Next slide. Thank you. So we want to keep our the roof clean and gutters clean. Again, if a fire was, even sometimes house fires have embers that can spread to the next house over if there's a bunch of dry pine needles or leaves or debris on the roof. So keeping the roof clean is a really good idea. We have a bunch of trees around our house, and we're always kind of blowing the roof off, like just getting on a ladder and blowing the needles off. And so that's, kind of a way with a what do you call it? A leaf blower. And then just trying to keep those gutters clean as well. Next slide. And then in an emergency, time is so crucial. So the fire engines or the fire apparatus is driving by, they, are going code 3, which means lights and sirens, and they're trying to get there. And then if they can't find your property because they can't find the address, or it's overgrown, then that slows us down, which is crucial in emergency that they get there as soon as possible. And then also our apparatus, our fire engines are big. And so if we can't get down your driveway, or your house is obstructed by, like tree limbs or overhead obstructions, that slows us down. So we ask you to try to keep those clear as well. Next slide. And then we're not saying, everybody needs to go out and re-roof your house. But if you are considering it's time for a new roof, consider non-combustible or fire resistant materials like composition shingles, metal, or tile. That can make such a difference. When the cedar shingles were so, kind of popular stylistically, we got a lot more roof fires. So that just because they're more combustible. So we really discourage flammable roofing materials. So next slide. And then this is a big one. Use alternatives to burning. Sometimes burning, and I think in many of your areas, there's a burn ban, like you're not allowed to burn yard debris anyway, but in some of the areas around your community that you are allowed to burn. So always follow call the burn line and make sure you have plenty of clearance, have a hose nearby. And then also consider alternatives to burning. Escaped debris piles are a prevalent cause for fires and wildland fires. So we just want you to consider recycling or composting. We have a chipper grant program at Clackamas Fire that if you have a project that you want to do, we will reimburse you up to $500 if you could do an alternative to burning. And so that is on our website, but we really encourage that. Next slide, please. And then also be prepared to respond to wildfire or any other emergency, keeping the concept of the 72-hour kit, having enough food and medication and essentials that if you had to live, without, say, power. The ice storms were such a good lesson for our family because we were without power for 8 days, and, just learning about how kind of helpless we are, and we didn't really have our kit in order. And so just we have checklists too on our website that just, talk about having water and non-perishable food, a first aid kit, flashlight and extra batteries, a battery powered radio. A family communication plan is important. If they always say, the emergency management people say that it's not a matter of if we're going to get a big earthquake, it's a matter of when. And sometimes in an emergency like that, the communication lines are down. And so you might not be able to contact people around our area, but you might be able to contact someone out of state. And so having an out of state contact in your communication plan to just let them know that you're okay, and then where other families can check in if they're trying to get a hold of you, but the communication systems are down. And then adhering to the Ready, Set, Go principles. And what Ready, Set, Go principles are is essentially, it kind of mirrors the county's the 1, 2, and 3 levels of evacuation. The first one's be ready, prepare for the threat of wildfire by creating defensible space around your property. Get set, and that's when, like the threat becomes more imminent of what they're concerned about, or the emergency. Having a wildfire action plan or a checklist that includes evacuation routes and meeting locations, and just be ready to go, kind of on a moment's notice. And then I firmly believe this, that if it becomes go or level 3 with the county, then they ask you to evacuate, that means that there's a pretty certain threat that's nearby. And so you hear stories of people that, they defended their house from this fire, but sometimes it doesn't work out so well. And you can definitely replace your things or, items in your house, but you can't replace loved ones or your life. And so if it gets to level 3, go now, that I would really, really strongly encourage people to do so. So next slide. Oh, first of all, do we have any questions? I'm going to go on to talking about fireworks safety. Any questions with wildfire preparedness or Ready, Set, Go? Anyone? Okay.
I don't see any hands, so.
Okay, awesome. So there are 2 camps of people regarding fireworks. And it seems like there are those that really, it's a part of their celebration. They really like it. It's very fun. And then there are people that really do not care for fireworks. So regardless, we really encourage some fire safety behaviors and some safe fireworks practices that probably can make a difference about whether or not we have an inadvertent fire on that day or not. The size of the firework problem on July 4th or Independence Day in a typical year, we get more fires than on any other day of the year. And then this is according to the National Fire Protection Association, and fireworks account for almost half of those on that day. So we urge people to be careful. We right now in our area have had some very dry weather. Next, the 4th of July, the weather forecast is for 95 to 98 degrees. So that is super hot. So we just really, really want people to adhere to the firework safety, and which I'm going to cover some of these things, and just celebrate together, have fun on the 4th, but be really safe. Also, the city of Milwaukee has banned fireworks. So if any of you are within the city of Milwaukee, there's a ban there. And I don't know if you've watched this on the news, but Portland Fire has a pretty restrictive ban this year. And they have talked about they're going to be doing enforcement patrols, and they are, they're going to be issuing citations. They had a fatality a couple years ago caused by fireworks that were disposed of improperly. And so they're taking it very seriously. So just be aware of the area that you're in. And then the other thing, we have this kind of saying in the fire service that, keep it legal, keep it safe. And so if families have to travel across the bridge to Washington to buy fireworks, there's a good chance that they might not be legal in Oregon. Oregon has very restrictive fireworks rules. The fireworks aren't supposed to shoot higher than 12 inches or further out than 6 feet. And so it's, it's intended to be kind of minor fireworks. So just know to keep it legal, keep it safe. And we're going to talk about some safety tips. Next slide, please. So we want people to read the instructions. I have tried this because I always try to, practice what I preach. And there are a lot of instructions on these, but most of the time they just basically say, safety tips like don't hold it in your hand, don't relight the fireworks, but do try to follow those. It might have to do with like where the wick is, or or don't light them, too many together. Be sure that other people are out of the range before lighting fireworks, and then only light fireworks on a smooth, flat surface away from the house, like, a driveway or the street, not in tall grass or, on your yard, or where there's, anything combustible like dry leaves or flammable materials. Next slide. And then light fireworks at an arm's length and one at a time. Once lit, stand back away from that. Never throw fireworks. So many injuries happen where, like, hey, watch this. People light them and then they try to throw them, and then they go off, like causing injury to their hands or their hearing, or, catching their hair on fire. And then this is a tough one. Never try to relight fireworks that have not fully functioned. So I have children, but I'm not like probably the greatest supporter of lighting fireworks. But when they were growing up, we got some. I didn't want them to be totally deprived. And so we would, they're so expensive. So you pay, $5 to $20 for this firework, and then it doesn't go off. And then it says never relight them because they could suddenly go off. So you are not supposed to, but that's a tough call sometimes when you've just spent so much money on that. But for safety's sake, never relight a firework that have not fully functioned. Next slide. So this is the best tip. Keep a bucket of water nearby in case of a malfunction or a fire. Then soaking the fireworks, like when my kids would light them, we put the fireworks in there and soak them overnight, because I have, as a fire investigator, gone to fires where people, put it in the regular garbage can, or they put it, in a paper bag, and then, like, what do you know, it's still hot and it smoldered and it started a fire. So soaking the fireworks in a bucket of water is a great idea. And then older children should be we like to say, like, have the adults light the fireworks, but then sometimes the adults aren't much better than the kids. So a responsible adult might be a good choice for lighting the fireworks. And then younger children, like, even when I was a kid, they, handed me a sparkler and said, here you go. And the tip of the sparkler can burn at 1200 degrees. So, like that, just monitor little kids very closely. And our recommendation is younger children shouldn't be administering the fireworks. Hopefully adults will be doing it, and then watching the older kids closely. Next one, please. And I think someone in the chat had said, like, oh my goodness, like how the implications of fireworks on the poor pets. And that is so true. I saw a presentation by the Humane Society, and they said that, or Animal Protective Services, and they said that, again, on the 4th of July, they get more stray dogs in than any other day, in the calendar year. And sometimes animals are so terrified of them, they just take off running, and then then you can't find your animal. So we have horses, and I remember our poor horses running up the field like they thought that the world was ending or something. But so if you can keep your pets indoors, just kind of away from the noise, we just highly recommend that. Unfortunately, our horses are not going to fit into our house, but we will just try to convince them that everything is going to be all right. Next slide. Then we just want you to have a happy and safe 4th of July and summer. This is kind of a little bit, sometimes people don't like to hear this, but we get so many calls on the 4th of July that if it's an immediate threat to life or property, that is the time to call 911. If there is a fire, like a firework causes a brush fire, a firework gets into someone's gutter and, that's on fire, of course, call 911. If someone gets injured by a firework or hurt, or, you know, like those are the times to call 911. But if you're just, you know, like not happy with the amount of fireworks that are going off in a neighborhood or something, there is a non-emergency number that is monitored 24/7. It goes to the same dispatch, but it's just considered, you know, like it doesn't tie up the lines that are, you know, intended for more emergency, like imminent emergencies. So if you, you know, if you have concerns, you can call the non-emergency number or 911 if it's an immediate threat. So that is the end of my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions or provide follow-up to anything.
Thank you, Captain Franklin. In the absence of seeing anyone else's hand up at the moment, I'm going to ask a question. I heard you in your presentation saying that there on your website there was something that you offered as an alternative to burning yard debris, and it went by really fast. And so I'm going to ask you again to explain that to people and tell us how to get to the website and what it is.
Thank you very much. I would be happy to elaborate on that. So we have a fantastic foundation called Clackamas Emergency Services Foundation, and they provided us, after the wildfires of 2020, they said they received a lot of donations from people saying, oh my gosh, please give this, you know, to stop the wildfires or help people who had been affected by fire. And so they gave us money for grants so that sometimes people, I mean, who knew we would have that ice storm that caused so much debris to fall down? And some people were just overwhelmed about, like, where do we even start with our cleanup and creating defensible space around our house for, you know, future threats of wildfire. So the Emergency Services Foundation has provided $500 grants, and you go to the clackamasfire.com, and what it will involve is you identify the project that you want to do. We'll ask you to send in pictures, and then someone will, it's usually me or Tammy Owen, who works for in community services, will come out and we'll go, yep, this is a very valid project. And then once you do the work, you have to pay for it initially, but once you do the work, that will, you know, you can hire a company to come and thin some of the debris, just creating that defensible space around your house. Then we will reimburse you for up to $500. But we are down to 11 grants left. So today and today only, you should apply. But yeah, it's on our website, and it's this little form, and it asks you to submit your address and what the proposed project is, and someone will come out and do a site visit. And then we will give you up to $500 to help clear your property to make it more fire safe.
Great, thank you.
Welcome.
Other, Bob, can I see your hand up?
Yeah, just a quick question. You were talking about getting everybody trained for CPR. Are you currently offering classes at the fire stations or anywhere else to kind of get the crowd in the neighborhood through class?
Well, we have two people in community services right now. And so we have focused the efforts for our training the classes we go to the schools, but we do contract with Cascade. I can't think of their whole name. It's on our website. But if you want to get a class together, they do charge a nominal fee for the class, but then it allows you to be certified in CPR. If you wanted just a more informal presentation, like without, like, it's not important to me to be certified in CPR, but like an informative, we can do that. So if your community group wanted to, you know, like get together and just kind of learn the basics and learn about how to use a defibrillator, we can offer that. But if somebody needs that actual certification for work, then we have to contract that out.
See. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Other questions? Tom?
I want to say that the Red Cross will do classes. So they did a hands-only CPR class in Gladstone.
Awesome.
So the Red Cross can be contacted and arrange for a a trainer.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Ben, I see your hand up.
Yeah, I was curious on the topic of defensible space landscaping. Are there like any plants that are, just extra flammable and we should think about removing if we're doing landscaping changes? Like, there are some plants that just have natural fireworks built in.
Yeah, there are, and unfortunately, like I'm not super versed in that area, but I could definitely look it up and get it back to you. But anything that is kind of like shiny and oily, that is what I've heard, that any plants that produce kind of like a natural oil, and those are like much more combustible than others. But I do have this great, this is a great resource. I'm gonna just make sure I have the name of it right. It's called Fire Resistant Plants and Landscaping, and it's from Oregon State. And this one talks about, like suggestions, but I can't think of any right offhand that are, like really alarming, but I do remember a presentation where they just said if it's like kind of oily or, those are the more flammable ones.
Jane, yeah.
Yes, first I was wondering what it was about lilac and vine maple that made them more defensible, but I guess that's probably in the handbook.
It probably is. Yep. And
Okay.
if you want me to bring you one, I can bring you one, or
Oh,
I can drop it off at the fire station.
That's okay. But also I just wanted to mention that the local Oak Lodge CERT at times does also offer CPR classes.
Very good.
If you want to
Nice.
check out their website or keep their ear open for that, you may get CPR and hands-on only from the Oak Lodge CERT.
Awesome. Thank you for that.
I'm gonna also for a few years back, there was a training people did about learning about the white oak savanna, which is the area that we live in, where white oaks, which are fire resistant, were actually the native trees for this area. And I've always been struck by one of the things that we were told is that the native people never lived around Doug fir trees, that they burned those out, not everywhere. They didn't live in the fir forest because fir trees go up like torches in fires.
Yes,
So,
they do.
And we've seen that. So one of the strategies is always to be sure that the fir tree branches, the lower branches, are cut up, that they're not down low. I mean, so it was pretty eye-opening, because we the European people coming in kind of like to live right next to fir trees. So
very true. Thank you.
any other thoughts from? Well, Captain Shanklin, we really appreciate your giving us the time to be here tonight. It's always a pleasure to have you. And thank you for the resources and good, interesting PowerPoint talk. So thank you very much.
Thank you for inviting me.
And we'll have you again. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we're going to move on our agenda. And next up, we have Commissioner Paul Savas, who has agreed to come and talk with us about updates and county activity and whatever else he has on his mind he'd like to share with us. So, Commissioner.
Thank you, Valerie, for inviting me to speak to you tonight. I probably think the most exciting news of all is that we just broke ground, did the groundbreaking for the Gladstone Library, and we expect in September to break ground on the Oak Grove Library. It doesn't have a name yet, but it'll be on the Concord property, slightly detached and about 10, 15, 20 feet away from the Concord School to the north. So that's pretty exciting. That's the good news. We are at the county level. We had our community leaders meeting last night. I believe Valerie was there and Mark Elliott was there, and Jane, you were there as well. And a number of CPOs. It was a packed house. I think almost every seat was taken. So we talked about a number of things, and we got a great presentation on fire tonight, but that was a big topic last evening. And my encouragement last night was talk to your local fire agency. They probably have a bunch of information, and I think that was realized here tonight. So I won't talk about fire because that one got covered pretty well. Another piece of news for those of you that follow it, especially at Willamette View, there's been a call for a safe crosswalk or safe crossing from across River Road near Willamette View, near Park Avenue. So that project has been in the works, and I believe it breaks ground late this year or early next. So it's coming, and I believe it'll be a flashing light, like you see at Boardman and Hull. So it should be something like that, but we're pretty excited about that. So that's the second piece of good news. What else we got? I'll talk about tolling later for those of you who are interested. I'm not sure if there is a lot of interest on that, but I will, I expect to talk about that. That's been consuming my life to a large degree. The other issue I think that's coming up here locally that you might be interested in, I've been hearing a lot about this. Matter of fact, was it Saturday? Yeah, Saturday, a local resident called me and said how upset he was because he just got a notice that his landlord increased his rent 150% as a result of taxes and a number of things. And for those of you who remember 2015 and when the rents went up in late 2015, and that created just a bunch of people who lost their homes or lost their apartments and lost their rooms, rents, so forth. So that put a lot of people out on the street. And we haven't really recovered from that quite yet. And I'm kind of concerned about another wave of that. The upside is we have supporting housing services dollars, and we discussed that last night at the community leaders meeting about the money we have and the opportunity for both building housing with the Metro Housing Bond money and also supportive housing services for retention, placement, and so forth for people that are struggling. But I just want to share with you a concern I heard from this longtime resident in Oak Grove who told me that the landlord's reasoning for raising the rent had a lot to do with the tax increase that's anticipated as a result of the fire district measure passing. And I guess the tipper for him, no, I'm not picking on my friends at Oak Lodge Water, but the Oak Lodge Water Services rate increase would probably increase, that pretty substantially. And I think the other fear around the corner is the school district is going to come out with another rate. That could amount to be about, for certain size homes, roughly, I'm estimating around $800 or $900 a year increase, if not more. Just depend on the value of your home. So I think people are really alarmed by that. So I can't speak for every financial situation, everyone in here, but that could be the tipping point for some folks. So the cost of living is a constant issue. Food is a big factor for all of us. We know that the cost of living is just skyrocketing. And I'm just very, very concerned. We are realizing that more and more people are, when they lose their home and they become houseless, are, the one natural graduation for them is to live in their car for a while. So there's a number of things we're trying to address there. We had a great presentation last night by Vahid Brown. He spoke to you before. We have a lot of resources right now, and we're doing our best to hire people. And so same goes for nonprofits who are having a lot of difficulty hiring people to actually provide the services, whether it's mental health or whether it's caseworkers or whether it is outreach workers, whether it's people in the food industry. So we have a lot of struggles, and we have not sorted this out yet as a society and as a local economy and how we're going to navigate that. But the good news is there are resources. The bad news is we're all struggling to hire people. The other thing the Board of County Commissioners did today, after several years of trying to get this off the ground, but the board voted unanimously today to move the short-term rental regulations to a hearing, the first hearing, which will probably be in a few weeks. So expect to see some outreach. You'll probably see some things on social media, on the county website, and for anyone who signed up as interested party during the year's worth of short-term rental discussions, you'll probably get some kind of a mailing or email notice. So that's the other big news there. And by the way, we did hear from a lot of people in Oak Grove that were, I think they would describe themselves as victims of short-term rentals that were not managed very well and did not have neighborhood-friendly operators or owners. So this 2-year pilot regulation that we passed will help get that underway and staff a person for at least a couple, 3 years, and then the board can make any adjustments in the future to do that. So we're hearing a lot from in the Oak Grove area, Oak Grove Jenny's Lodge, a lot of complaints over these last few years about that, as well as especially up on the mountain. Up on the mountain's a big deal because there's less law enforcement up there, and there's a lot of people that want to party during the winter months or even the summer months. So we have a big challenge there. And I don't want to talk at you so much. I'd love to hear if there's any questions or anything that you all want to talk about. So I will just throw out one more bit of information. I think you all find, I won't say encouraging. I won't say interesting. I won't say bothersome, but I sat on my first transit committee, I think in 1999 with TriMet. And since that time, it became very clear that communities like ours, including West Lynn, whether you live in West Lynn off 43 or whether you live in West Lynn off of I-205 in the Willamette area, Oregon City, where the topography makes it really challenging for people to commute to transit. And we have a lot of transit deserts whereby there's no transit available. And we've heard the call for local jitneys. It's been 4 years of asking for that. And while we get a little bit here and a little bit there, we're still not getting, there's not very much monies available to improve that or increase coverage. And TriMet is struggling with ridership. So the stress for revenues for TriMet to expand transit service in Clackamas County is extremely challenging, and it's not looking very good, folks. We were hoping that when ODOT had ventured into the tolling discussion, we were initially promised that, oh, by the way, with all this, we can provide some of that revenue for transit. And then it took about a year and a half where we were excited by that. And then when they withdrew that and said, oh, well, we found out we actually can't do that. It was constitutionally not legal. So that's quite a bit disappointing. But just to cover now on the tolling piece, and I'll stop talking, is that that is it's quite dynamic. The governor put a pause on it here a while back. The pause was only a pause on the collections. It was not a pause on the implementation. It's been moving at a very swift rate. On Monday, there was a very large meeting, the Regional Tolling Advisory Committee meeting in Portland. When I say we virtually all the cities and the counties and including Metro are all aligned on a number of things with regard to ODOT's approach. And we're really not very happy with that. The governor ordered the ODOT to produce a report by July 1st. And we got our first look at that late Monday after the meeting. And today, the Oregon Transportation Commission basically has a proposal that would indefinitely postpone the second phase of the I-205 project. So the worst of our fears is coming true. And the worst of the fears is that the diversion we've been fighting to eliminate by the bottleneck project is going to be now compounded with the bottleneck not going away. Only the bridge will be completed, but the bottleneck, the 5.8 mile bottleneck, will remain in place, and there'll be a toll. So there'll be a double incentive for people to divert into local roads. And that will be, not only will that be a double incentive, but the worst part about that is that the tolls will be probably 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So at all hours of the days, people will probably be cutting through and going around the tolled facility to save money. That's a lot said. I'll stop there and look for hands and see if there's any questions. You're all gonna let me off the easy. I see
Wait.
Wayne.
I'm just curious about where things stand in terms of the housing for the homeless people in Clackamas County. That issue was vetoed, basically, it seemed to me, and I believe the chair was going to set up some kind of a committee to continue to explore that. Is that still moving along in some way?
Yes, for the three folks that are in this meeting tonight that were in the meeting last night, they had a report of our housing program and the things that we are doing. And the fact that, by Vahid's own words, that our homeless counts are improving, meaning they're going down. So there's less people that are homeless. The project you're referring to was the acquisition of the Quality Inn off of Sunnyside and 205. And that is a vote that got reversed by the chair changing her vote. That created a lot of heartache. Commissioner Schrader and I were the lone two votes on the losing side of that 3-2 vote to reverse course. However, we are still doing. That model would have really provided what I call transitional housing, meaning that we would provide hotel rooms for people that are experiencing homelessness and get them to transition into permanent housing. And we've been highly successful with that model. We are currently doing that at several hotels, not exclusively, with the exception of Econo Lodge. Every room at Econo Lodge is reserved for that purpose with funds through our county, SHS funds. So while that is not happening, there are still rooms in several hotels that are being used, but it's a shame. We could have had ownership of that facility and complete control, and we could have done a number of other things, including recovery models and so forth. So the good news is we're still doing that kind of work, and there is more money available to continue that. It just won't be a facility owned by Clackamas County. Wayne, does that get to your question, sir?
Great. Yes, that does. Thank you.
I don't see any more hands, so Valerie, I'll turn it back to you.
I'm going to ask you a question then.
Okay.
Okay, so just opinion maybe, or where it is. I was at the TriMet meeting on Monday night. They had an open house at the Elks Lodge. They were trying to gather community input. I don't know how many people eventually showed up, but it was a fairly light turnout at the time that I was there, about adding 2 more stories to the parking garage. Is that a done deal? I mean, is it just going to happen regardless? I mean, the truth is that the parking garage is not full. And my husband and I walked to that meeting, walked through the parking garage, and it was almost empty. I mean, it's just not full. Is it because they had the money? And I hear this thing about use it or lose the money, but it seems like, I mean, it will be this very large building at the entrance to Oak Grove that currently is not really being used. Are they just banking on the world going back to pre-COVID? I mean, I don't see. So yeah, when you talk about they're not having money to do other kinds of things, my frustration level, went up a notch again, saying, it seems like it's sufficient as is.
Okay, I'll take that in little bites here. So first of all, the money that I alluded to expand coverage and basic service for, typical transit service and local shuttles and everything, that's, they would define that as operations monies. So those are always been an extreme short supply. They have been doing a lot of capital projects, and there's always seems to be federal money available through the FTA and the Federal Highway Administration for transit. So we are the recipient and get awarded a lot of transit money for large capital projects. So those monies are available to to the parking garage is for those of you who remember, I was there watching every day on day one when the green line opened. That first Monday, that facility was not only full, but it was overflowing into communities and neighborhoods on both sides of McLaughlin Boulevard, up on the upper part of Park Avenue and on the lower part of Park Avenue, to the point that we got substantial complaints for months about that. So it was packed at that time in 2015. And it got so bad that TriMet, as you all know or may know, is that TriMet had the lease space from the Elks Lodge for parking, and they still have that contract with the Elks Lodge for that overflow. In the course of time, a few years ago, there were a couple proposals that would have placed a housing development project on the Elks Lodge, where the Elks Lodge would either lease or still own the land, but it'd be a private partnership. And we talked about a partnership between TriMet and to be able to use the parking on the weekends and the evenings when TriMet is not really using it, or TriMet customers aren't really using it. So there'd be an opportunity to exchange that. So there was discussions and dialogue about that. So we knew that that was a possibility. That has lived out in a big way to be a reality at the Fuller Road Station area, where we just built and opened here in October, 100 unit facility on the Fuller Road Transit Station area property, where they share the parking there. They don't have a parking structure there, but they have parking there. So we know that is a viable means, and that TriMet is now flexible. As to the need for it post-COVID and so on, the question really is, I think it really hangs out there now, and we don't know what's going to happen, but the presumption is by that transit will come back in time. And if we want to make the assumption that transit is not going to come back and ridership is going to continue to be flailing or very, very weak, we've got some major problems in this region, major problems. So the money is there for this project, and it is kind of a use it or lose it. From my understanding, this was negotiated a long time ago. I think it was, I'm pretty sure that was when either right when Chair Bernard became chair, or maybe shortly before. I do remember when Chair Ludlow was on the board, there was a deal struck that if there were leftover monies from the Green Line, that would come back to Clackamas County for a project. And because the parking issue was such a big deal, that's when the decision was made that expanding the parking was the parking structure was the thing to do. So we haven't, we're not, it is, we are working with TriMet, as you all are, on that structure. But if there is a belief that transit is not going to come back, it's bigger than Park Avenue. But again, we have this housing opportunity where that can be capitalized on in a big way. So I don't necessarily see it as a loss. I see it as an opportunity.
Well, I'm just, thank you for addressing it. I'm just addressing it on behalf of the people who actually live close enough to actually see it, and to talk to you about what they see going on in the half-empty parking structure already, and how they're not really thrilled to have 2 more stories going up. So anyway, but thank you for addressing that.
You bet.
Are there other questions from people tonight? Commissioner Savas, are you willing to talk a little bit about the push to close the Office of Diversity, Equity, Inclusion?
Yeah, sure. I will be, if you all be understanding, I'm going to be very careful. I don't want to disparage my colleagues, so I won't do that, but I will be as direct as I can. So last week, Thursday, we passed the budget, and in that budget process back in May, when Commissioner Scholl had made the motion, there was $820,000 for that office. And that was, that was really the same amount we've always funded. So it wasn't a new program. It was just, continuance of the same DEI program. The administrator, because of the courthouse, was looking to cut general fund. So we cut $60,000 of that general fund contribution from that. And now it lives at a 760 or 780, $760,000 that office. That was approved without any on Thursday. So the office is not, budget-wise, it's not shut down. And during the budget meeting on last Thursday, there was a short discussion about having a policy discussion about what we do with, from a policy standpoint, I think how we operate that, how we operate DEI. I would probably, I think to me, it's a little bit bothersome that we would second guess, what we, when I say we, what the past boards have done by resolution. We have supported diversity, equity, inclusion policies, resolutions unanimously. Back at, dating back prior, during when Chair Ludlow and Tootie Smith were on the board then, and prior, and actually prior to the board. So we had DEI embedded in there. Any employer, any government employer especially, has to have that. And a lot of our grants are really based on, when we apply for a grant, what we are doing and making sure that not just a box that we check for sake to say, oh yeah, we have something, but in a meaningful way, say that we are committed towards diversity, equity, inclusion. We have our, we go to the Northwest Diversity Conference every year. I thought it was strange that, when we did it this year, we were the only jurisdiction in the metro region that had full attendance of the board. 5 commissioners went to that, and we went to the conference, and we had went through the conference materials and the process, and so we participated. So it came as a shock to me, this change, if you will, or seemingly change. If I use my instincts, I think the instincts that we'll have a conversation about it. And I'm hopeful, optimistic that there will not be any substantial changes to it. I think there's a concern, as for those of you who have listened to the video or the audio of that, there may be some concerns that a couple of my colleagues have with regard to the word equity and what it means, I think. And I don't think, and I don't want to divvy up diversity. I don't want to divvy up inclusion. I use the word belonging. And I really think that everyone needs to, not only feel belong, but actually be part of everything that we do. I mean, we are the great melting pot. I was raised that way, and raised in a racially mixed family and area. So I get it. I've seen discrimination. I know it's real, and we've had real cases here in Clackamas County. So he can't dispute the fact that these issues are very real. And as an employer, I think we have, you can parse it out as far as being an employer. If you're an employer, you have a responsibility to make sure that you have a trained workforce in many ways, but including understanding and being sensitive to and understanding diversity, equity, inclusion. From an economic standpoint, when it comes to grants and so forth, you have, as I stated earlier, you have to be prepared for that. On a personal level, as far as attracting good talent and everything, skill sets, that having a diverse workforce brings a wealth, frankly, I think, of genius, ideas, and that's why this country has been so successful. I think it's really part of who we are. So if we look at it from just those standpoints, I think it's extremely important that we continue that. From the other element of it, I say the other element is internally, our staff need to feel as though they belong. Our staff need to feel that they're wanted, they belong, and they don't have to worry about any threats. On the external side, in our communities, people need to feel as though they belong. And so I'm kind of concerned for those of you who saw, we had an issue with a county employee. There was a African-American gentleman who lost his life in the jail here last year. And so there was a memorial put on the corner of Library Road and Beaver Creek. And apparently later on, we learned that a Clackamas County employee had painted a swastika, I believe, on the memorial, on the curbside. So if that's not demonstrative enough that there's a need for continued education, and I don't know what is. So I've said a lot. I hope that answers some questions. I am completely supportive of the program. I hope that we don't have any interference with continuing that program.
Thank you, Commissioner Salas, and thank you for being here tonight. Thank you for your words. And thank you for allowing yourself to be put on the spot there a little bit at the end and speaking to us, because I think it's a concern in this community, but we really appreciate having you tonight, and hope that you will come back again, as always. I mean, you're an Oak Grove resident, so we like having you here when you show up. So thank you for talking with us.
Yeah, always a pleasure to attend these meetings and be with my neighbors. So thank you.
Thank you. So we're going to move on our agenda right now. We have the board has been in dialogue with the Oak Lodge Water Services District in the last few months, working to create a partnership with the Oak Lodge Water Services District. So we have a draft proposal that I want to share with you tonight, and then we would like, I'm going to ask Heidi if she wants to add anything, and then what we would like to hopefully do is to have a motion and a vote as to whether to go forward. So this partnership agreement would creates a system where the Oak Lodge Water Services District will provide the Oak Grove Community Council with $1,000 a year to be used for any purchasing of electronic equipment or meeting space to facilitate our meetings, and to conduct community outreach, which is a broad term but would be helpful to us in mailings or gatherings or any of the other ways that we do outreach. So this would supplement the funds that we get from the county. We do, for those of you who don't know that, we get a little bit of money from the county. I think we can be reimbursed up to, I think it's moved to $200 a year. It used to be 150, now it's 200. So having that $1,000 a year from the water district will make a huge difference. And in return, we have some things that we will be doing, and that is to make sure that the Oak Lodge Water Service District, the link to their websites and what is going on with them will be available on our website, that we make sure that we publish 4 times a year, the protect your local waterways. And knowing how environmentally concerned this community is, I think that's not going to be a difficult ask for us. Heidi, do you want to add anything else? I mean, I think that's really the gist of it, that we will be working together to make sure that when we do outreach, we are making sure that the information from the water district, which is really important to us, water is life. If we don't have it, we're in big trouble. So we want to be supportive of them back. So that's the contract or agreement that we would sign and move into would begin on July 1st of this year. So Heidi, is there anything you'd like to add?
No, you've covered it all. It's really a partnership, and I think this is a memorialization of that partnership, that in kind of the funding that we'll provide you, we're kind of relying on the gathering of the community that you hold, and that you will help disseminate important information as it relates to our water. And that's really it. It's just a mutual agreement and partnership. And I think, we are willing to invest in your community gathering and dissemination of information as a very important information as it relates to our water, both, you know, drinking water and our wastewater. So I think that's it. You covered it. And yeah, it's a 3-year agreement. So it'd be $1,000 a year for 3 years.
So I want to open it to community if there are any questions or comments that you would like to make about this. Thelma.
Yeah, Heidi, I was led to believe that you were going to be separating the water bill from the sewer bill, and that we would be getting one each month. Where right now they're together and they come once every other month. Can you, I haven't seen any of that in any of the information that has been put out, so I was just asking if that's true or not.
No separate, so the bill will still be a combined bill as it relates to drinking water and your wastewater and sewer. But because of the rate increases that are necessary, we are going to be trying to move to a monthly billing. So it's not going to happen soon. Like, we're hoping it will happen in the next 6 months, but probably not before the new year. We're going to move to monthly billing. So you will have a combined bill, but you'll be getting it every month instead of every other month. That's the plan.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Heidi, there are funds available for, as I understand, I went to the water district meeting. There are funds available for low income people and others who are struggling. Is that correct?
Correct. And so, yeah, exactly. So there is assistance for bills, and also if you would benefit from a different payment plan sooner than when the whole district or authority can roll into their new billing program. If you need an alternate billing payment plan, reach out to them and they can set something up for you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Eleanor, you had a question.
Yes, actually, it's a comment. I wanted Heidi to thank you and the rest of the board of the Water Services Authority for your generosity and for the wonderful ability to work well with other organizations, and that's something that in our community, that's what makes community, and the bonds and relationships and interconnectedness that we forge with each other and in this community between organizations as well as individuals is really, really what we need so much in this unincorporated area where we're all struggling to create identity and sense of place and all these different things. So incredible thanks for working out that arrangement and for having mutual faith in how it is that we can benefit each other and work really well to benefit all the residents of this area. So thank you very much for that.
Great, and thank you.
Yeah.
Are there other questions or comments about this agreement that or partnership that we're entering into? Can I hear a motion from the floor?
I'll make a motion. I'd make a motion to gloriously accept that generosity. Yes, please. However Jane wants to write that down, feel free.
I second that.
Right. Are there any questions in between, any clarifications now at the voting time? So all eligible voters, how do we need to do this? Do we have enough people? No. I think what we need to do in the chat box, can we do it in the chat box, or can we do it? Are there any dissenting voters? If you're a dissenting vote, if you're not willing to raise your hand, could you put it in the chat directly to Jane Civiletti?
Thank you.
And to help explain to those who might not be familiar, it's state law that if there's less than 25 voting members, the minutes have to show the names of the people who voted. And if there's over 25, then you can just go by the numbers. So just for the sake of making things easier and time-wise, this is, Valerie, good on you. So.
Right. If we have no dissenting voters, we can write down the names of our people who are voting members at this time as when we do attendance. Are we good?
All dissenting voters, type in.
And again, this is an exciting opportunity. So I want to thank the Water District too for entering into this partnership with us. I think it gives us some real options forward in the future. Thank you very much. Joseph, do we have any land use issues tonight?
I do. I'll actually share my screen. And let's see, I'm going to mute you if your microphone is on so that there's no background noise. Thank you. Okay, here I'm gonna share. Oops. Okay, are we seeing the presentation? Very good. So we do actually have a new application that came in very recently for a conditional use on Oakfield Road at the intersection with McNary. And this is we saw this a few years ago when the application came in to designate it as a historic landmark. And so now there's a proposal for a conditional use for the nonprofit who owns it to to put their office there, to use it as their office space. That hearing is actually on July 27th. It'll be the day after our next meeting. And so here is what the site looks like. You can see how heavily treated it is. And here's on the right is the site context where you can see that it's on Oakfield, pretty far south. It actually abuts the city of Gladstone on that southeast side. And so the proposal is the applicant's proposing to use the historic house that is a landmark for staff offices and occasional board meetings. And here's basically what the plan is now. This is the site plan. They're not planning on changing anything at all. They really just need to get it approved to use it as an office space now instead of just a house. So one of the concerns that we heard previously when this came through on the prior review is that the treehouse lane is actually covered by an easement to provide access to properties to the south. And that will remain. And, and then as well as you can see here that the hash marks represent the forested area on the site, and all of that is intended to remain. And then that's the only new one. We have a few updates. The subdivision that's going in on Courtney at Linden Lane that many of you have probably seen is well underway. A portion of that site is in the low density land use designation, land use zoning, but a portion of it is also in the medium density residential land use. So that means that portion needs to be design reviewed. And so there was a design review meeting and that was approved after our most recent meeting at the end of May. And then there was also a partition on Woodland Way, the south end of Woodland Way, that was also approved immediately after our last meeting. And I'll show a couple of pictures for each of these. The partition on Rothy Road, towards the east end of that was approved just earlier this week. And the conditional use for the library on Concord was approved earlier this month. And so again, here's the property on Courtney at the intersection of Courtney and Linden Lane that only a portion actually, again, is under review. And it's the medium density portion where they're putting in some townhouse buildings. And this is basically what that's going to look like. And I'll skip ahead to the site plan. And basically, this was the only issue that came up in the design review was the amount of landscaping that was defined needed to be, more clearly identified on the map. And so This really complies with all of the relevant standards and was approved. And so again, they just needed, just one condition was about the, making sure that they said where the landscaping was. The partition on Woodland Way is a very large site, and they're carving off one very large site for a new home site. And they're staying out of the habitat conservation area. So this is a really simple, straightforward, by the book partition. And it was approved, so.
Joseph, you have a couple of questions. Do you want to take those now? Or
Yeah,
do
I can't see anybody. So yeah, if there's questions about the prior applications, then please jump in.
Eleanor?
Or please moderate for me, Valerie.
Yeah, sure.
Eleanor, and
Joseph,
then
I had a
Jane.
I had a question on the first one. It said the Kinsman House or whatever. And I'm
Yeah.
just wondering, do you have any idea if that's related to the Kinsman Foundation?
They are the owners, yes.
It is that family. That's what I assumed. I just wanted to make sure. So great.
Yeah, this one here.
Yeah.
It is
exactly.
the Kinsman House. It is owned by the Kinsman Foundation, and they actually will they intend to have a representative available at our next meeting to answer questions about this project.
Terrific. And wouldn't it be nice if it said Oak Grove on the bottom instead of Milwaukee? But that's just me down there.
Oh, yeah. Good catch, Eleanor. So I'll move ahead. Let's see. We were on Woodland Way.
Jane had a question too, Joseph.
Oh, Jane, go for it. Thank you.
You can go back 2 more slides to the partitioning right there on Courtney Ave. I take it the right side of that is Linden Lane. And you had said that development was going to have some townhouses?
Yes, this portion closest to Courtney is being developed with townhouses. And so you can see, you may be able to see here.
I see individual lots. Nothing looks like it would accommodate a townhouse there.
Yeah, so what they're, oops. This is ultimately the site, the site plan that they're showing, the front elevation for the building. So,
okay.
However,
where?
Yeah. And then here's the other building.
Yeah, I see. I just wondered where those buildings would fit into that other plat, because they're just lots 1 to 10 and then 11 to 14. But
oh, so yeah, that's a good point, Jane. I thought that this was. Well, it looks to me. Oh, yeah. So lot 9. This is a 2,000 square foot lot. So yeah, this is absolutely where the four units will be attached.
So Jane, the white square is the actual townhouse. The lot is actually much larger. That would be the white, yellow, and green, all 3. So the white square that you see, lot 10, that is actually the townhouse.
I see. Okay.
Hey,
Any other questions? Yeah, go for it.
It's Bob. I was a little bit familiar with that property before the development. Have you seen anything in the paperwork on geological info at all? That property had some hazardous materials on it. And I was just wondering, it didn't seem like they did an awful lot of remediation, but it's kind of hard to tell too. It's, they worked on it for a bit before they started putting in the streets and stuff. But I was just wondering if they've got it certified that they got the ground cleaned up there. Because there were some hazardous materials on the property.
I'll have to look that up and see what I can find out for you, but I have not seen anything about that in the materials. Yes?
Joseph, I had heard something about that from a friend who lives very close to the property. And the reason they had started on it quite a while ago, and then it seemed as if construction and progress had stopped, was because they identified hazardous waste on the site. And at that point, they did have to remove vast amounts of soil and do a lot of work there. And that's why, although it's been under construction for some time, there is not a stick of lumber up yet at the site. They did have to do a lot of work.
Okay.
They've been doing, they'd had a body shop there, so evidently been dumping a little bit of their thinner and that kind of stuff out.
There
But
was battery and lead
Right.
problems too.
Yeah, the grandfather had been doing batteries since I guess back in the 50s or something, recycling batteries along with the older gentleman that was there that actually sold the property, who I've misplaced his name in my brain here for a moment. But yeah, I was on there when they were doing their garage sale, and there was a stack of batteries, probably, or battery cases, probably 7 or 8 feet tall and 20 feet wide and 50 feet long. So they've been doing a few.
Well, thank you both for, thank you all for the question, and thank you, Jane, for the details. I will move on unless there are other questions. Okay. Again, the Woodland Way partition was very straightforward. They're avoiding all of the habitat areas on the site. The Rothy Road partition is way at the east end of Rothy Road, basically at the top of Oakfield Ridge. And the proposal is for just one additional property, and the it's kind of hard to see the material here, but Rothy Road is running across the top, and they're basically creating a new site at the the right side of this, which is kind of the eastern portion of the site. We'll have a new site, and part of this does require that there will be preservation of the wooded hillside and creeks at the rear of the property, and that intends to be accommodated through a restricted development area agreement that will be applied to the property in perpetuity. And so I wonder, was there a better way to show? Yeah, I don't really have anything better to show about that. So, but the steep slopes in the back of the site did get protected. And then we also had an approval on the conditional use for the library at the Concord site. And I'm not going to make you read that or listen to me read it to you. I'll just summarize by saying that it was found that they need a variance for the front yard setback because of where the library building is proposed to be sited is closer to the Spalding Avenue right of way than is allowed in that zoning district. And so they'll need a variance for that. And then they also will be required to reconstruct the mid-block crosswalk on Concord up to current standards, as well as the frontage requirements where the sidewalks and street trees will be. Then that was all kind of expected, but I think it was a surprise that they're going to need to redo the mid-block crosswalk. And pending is the design review for that library building. That application is still incomplete, and we're waiting to see that, so we might be able to submit comments on it. That's all I got.
Thank you, Joseph. As always, very thorough and clear about what's going on. So really appreciate that. So we're moving to committee reports. Is there a library? We're running a little longer. I hope people can be a little patient tonight. I think we've had a lot of good information. We have a few other things to get done before we adjourn. Is there an HDOG report tonight? I heard there's a festival thing coming up.
Yes, there's an HDOG report regarding the upcoming Oak Grove Festival. So as I'm sure people have been seeing, we've got signs up. There's going to be a festival on Saturday, July 15th from 11 to 4 on Oak Grove Boulevard from Rupert, where the Oak Grove United Methodist Church is, all the way to River Road. And I've just got some news in. NCPRD is doing some wonderful things. And it looks like we're going to have a dance bubble party for the kids from 3 to 4 in the afternoon. And we're hopeful, fingers crossed, it's not set yet, that we will have jugglers and stilt walkers as well. Hold your breath. We don't know about that yet. So I know, Anita, thrilled, right? But we've got all sorts of fabulous stuff going on. Food, I think there's 6 different food trucks and all sorts of other stuff. Music, 105 booths at this point, and I think it's over 50 classic cars will be there as well. So entertainment and fun for all ages, beer garden. Help me remember all the other wonderful things that we have going on. So again, it's
the Oak Grove Community Council will be there.
Yes, the Oak Grove Community Council will be there. And if anybody wants to volunteer, please feel free to get in touch with anybody to get the information to us, because we need lots of volunteers to make this a healthy, fun, marvelous, safe time for everybody. Oak Lodge CERT is going to be involved. The Water District has helped us with a wonderful, generous sponsorship. There's all sorts of wonderful people involved in this thing. It's just been so much fun, and the team of people making it happen is great. So come on down, support the community, July 15th, kids stuff, adult stuff, teen stuff, just about everything you want. So.
Thank you, Eleanor. And a thank you to Mark Elliott, to the two of you we know that have done a great deal of work on this project, and I think we're all looking forward to it. So thank you very much. Yeah. Is there a library report tonight?
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Most of it's already been covered, but I will say that not only will groundbreaking for the Oak Lodge Library be probably the third week in September, the park adjoining it will also be developed at the same time. And they just decided to go ahead and do the splash pad instead of put it off indefinitely. So.
Hallelujah. Great. Thanks for good news.
And since I'm already here, I'll just say, as a DAC member who is stepping down in a few hours, that I'm delighted to say that Mark Elliott is the new DAC member. And since Oak Grove is in sub area 2 and also sub area 1, there are 4 DAC members for all you all. And Mark Elliott is the exciting new person.
Great. All right. Mark, do you have an announcement or?
Yeah, I just wanted to pick up a little bit on what Paul mentioned about the DEI office, and I wanted to just elaborate on that just a little bit. In response to what happened here recently with the discussion on the DEI office, a group of over 250 local elected leaders, business leaders, faith leaders, and organization leaders have joined together with a group called Here Together. That's a local homeless advocacy nonprofit that's drafted a letter of support in support of the DEI office. And that letter is to be presented to the Board of County Commissioners sometime in early July. And I've included a copy of this letter in the chat. So for those of you who might be interested to read this, it's about 2 pages long, but I thought I would just hit some of the highlights of that. The letter asks, among other things, that the BCC continue to fund the DEI office, stating that the work of this office is essential for the continued progress, unity, and success of our community. It aligns with the values of Clackamas businesses, cities, and residents to create a welcoming, inclusive, and thriving county. Whether you're Black, brown, or white, everyone deserves to be treated fairly. Political leaders should commit themselves to dismantling racism and promoting equality. The letter encourages BCC members to see the DEI office as an essential investment rather than an extraneous expense. Funding the county office of equity and inclusion can yield significant returns by improving social cohesion, boosting economic growth, and ensuring a Clackamas County where everyone can thrive. So I wanted to put forth a resolution that asking the Oak Grove Community Council and our members to consider a resolution that would be in support of this letter, actually in signing this letter. So if you give me a second, I would like to share this resolution on my screen so you can actually see what that resolution says.
I will second that motion, Mark.
Okay, so here, well, let's look at the resolution first. Hopefully you can all see it. It just says members of the Oak Grove Community Council in attendance at the OGCC General Meeting on June 28th hereby call on the Board of County Commissioners to maintain or increase funding to the Clackamas County Equity and Inclusion Office in the fiscal year 23-24 budget and beyond, and to prioritize the work of the office moving forward. Members do hereby give authorization to the Community Council Board to sign on as signators to the letter of support as prepared and circulated by Here Together, a 501c3 nonprofit, on behalf of the general membership of the Oak Grove Community Council. So that is my resolution. And Jane, if you would like to second that after I read it, maybe that would be more appropriate.
I will second it after you have read it.
All
Thank you.
right, thank you.
Is there any discussion? Commissioner Savas?
Yeah, I just want to just publicly state I'm in support of the resolution, but of course you're sending it to the Board of County Commissioners, of which I am one, so I will abstain. So I want to make sure that my abstention is not misunderstood.
Sure, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments about this?
I'd just like to thank Mark for bringing this to our attention and proposing and drafting this resolution. I'm happy to support this tonight and look forward to it winning the support of everybody here in attendance. I think this is really important, and I'm really I was like Commissioner Savas said, I was stunned by the news out of the Board of County Commissioners meetings where this really was questioned. This is really important for the county, for attracting talent to the county in order to staff these positions to provide county services. And, as Paul mentioned as well, that the county is having a lot of trouble, retaining and, finding talent and retaining talent. And that's going to continue to be a problem because young talent expects their employers to provide a diverse workplace and to be inclusive and support everybody that's there. And so this is, I really hope that we do support this, and I'm happy that it was brought forward. Thanks again, Mark.
Eleanor.
Ditto to that, and I would say it's also that there is an obligation to provide safe working environments and safe communities to live in, and that's part of it as well. So again, Mark, thank you so much for your efforts.
All right, so maybe if everybody, I hopefully had a chance to hear that, we can stop sharing of that, and if we can do this the same way. If you, Jane Civiletti will be keeping track of voting members. So if you are a voting member that does not wish to vote for this, as a negative vote for it, please let Jane know, and then we can count that way. And she will not publicly say what names they are. Just send it directly to Jane Civiletti, and she'll keep track of the vote. Just giving people a few minutes. Maybe we'll just keep that open as people are having an opportunity to vote.
Thank you.
Are there any comments or public input that people issues like to bring up or to our community council tonight before we break? So just open to our membership. Is there anyone? There is someone here from Roseville. Is that correct? Do we have someone here from Roseville? Yes. I'm gonna. I was hoping to be able to announce tonight that Cindy Brown has been to 3 consecutive meetings. She's not here tonight, but she is now a voting member. So when you see her and you pass her someplace, and let her know that we're thrilled that she's now a voting member of the council. And for those who are new here tonight and wondering about voting membership, you need to come to 3 meetings within 12 months in order to become a voting member. And then after that, to maintain your voting membership, at least 1 meeting in 12 months afterwards. So that's how that works. Are there any announcements tonight? Jane, did it pass or fail?
It has passed unanimously.
Right. All right. Well, there is we're 7 minutes past when I thought we might be done. But at this point, I will adjourn the meeting, having, perhaps I should say, first of all, that the next board meeting will not be until August, and so you will hear about that. And at the July meeting, we will have a presentation by the Clackamas County Department of Transportation and Development regarding the Courtney Avenue Complete Street project. And the board is still actively looking to how we might do a hybrid meetings and be together once again, but also honor the people for whom the Zoom meeting is the best option for them to participate. So we're still working on that. So, and then our general meeting will be July 26th. So with that, we are adjourned. And if you would like to stay around for conversation, you're welcome to do that.
And